The woke right are having a meltdown over Labour's policy of allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. This comes after Labour reaffirms their commitment to lowering the voting age. I think it's really important that 16 and 17-year-olds have the vote because they are old enough to go out to work. They are old enough to pay taxes, so they pay in, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said. I think if you pay in, you should have the opportunity to say what you want your money to spend on, which way the government should go, Starmer added. There are currently around 1.6 million 16 and 17-year-olds in the UK. Far-right turf activist Posey Parker asks the question, did anyone vote for this? Well, since it was in their manifesto, yes, millions of people voted for it. Julie Hartley-Brewer gave her reasons on Talk TV.
Just some breaking news for you. I mean, just when you think things couldn't get any worse. You know how 16 and 17-year-olds, well, they're now trusted to have sex, and they can have, sex with someone of the same sex. That was banned for many years. Not allowed to buy cigarettes, not allowed to buy vapes, not allowed to buy a pint or a glass of wine in the pub. That would be illegal. And why? Well, because we don't really trust those people to make those decisions. Not allowed to get married. Not allowed to get married under the age of 18 either these days anymore. Required to stay in full-time educational training of some sort at the age of 16 and 17. However, as of the next election, as just confirmed in the news from the government today, 16 and 17-year-olds will be allowed to vote for the first time across the whole of the UK. This brings the whole country in line with Scottish and Welsh elections. We're going to let kids vote.
The horror. And I love that. I mean, I feel like she thinks she's got like a really good take here. She thinks she's slam dunk with that. But in her little monologue, she said, well, here's some things 16 and 17-year-olds can do, and here's some things they can't do. Okay, fine. Let voting be one of them things. It's not like they can't do these swaths of things, and then allowing a 16, 17-year-old vote is sort of out of place. And she also fails to mention that 16 and 17-year-olds work and pay taxes. They can join the army. And of course, I mean, she did mention the age of consent. No taxation without representation, right? Peter Lloyd, the right-wing commentator, somehow managed to shoehorn Shamima Begum into this. Shamima Begum at 16, she didn't know what she was doing. She was just a kid. She can't be held responsible. 16-year-olds voting, totally fine. They're grown-ups. Give them power. Well, first of all, she was 15, you wardrobe. Secondly, you can literally flip the argument around the other way. It's a moot point. Plus, you could be groomed at any age. Nigel Farage has accused Labour of rigging the vote. Nigel Farage has stated the following regarding the extension of voting rights to 16 and 17-year-olds. Giving 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote is an attempt to rig the political system. Reducing the vote does advantage Labour. As we can see, they are ahead in the polls when it comes to this age cohort. There's also someone else who would greatly benefit from reducing the voting age. The poll shows that Jeremy Corbyn is the most popular politician with 16 and 17-year-olds beating out the other leaders by a wide margin. It's not even close. Kevin, I mean, what do you make of the woke rights outrage of this policy? And is it truly rigging the vote?
Firstly, your use of the word wardrobe as an insult is beautiful. Well done. And secondly, yes, the right wing are up in arms about this because they know it hurts them electorally. And Keir Starmer is doing this, A, because it was in the manifesto, but B, because he thinks it will electorally help him. It's politics. That's how politics works, lads. Get used to it. The idea that Nigel Farage or Julia Hartley-Brewer are so deeply against the rigging of the system, when neither of them spoke out against the introduction of voter ID laws, which have disenfranchised tens of thousands of the poorest and most disadvantaged citizens in our society from the franchise, nor did they seemingly have too much of a problem with Brexit being won on the back of illegally stolen data and all the rest of it, through Cambridge Analytica and all the rest of it. They are absolutely for rigging the system. They hate any extension of the franchise whatsoever because democracy is anathema to them. They know they can't win in a fair fight, so they have to rig it themselves. And as we all know with Conservatives, every accusation is a confession. They are the ones who have been seeking to rig it completely and utterly, including, of course, owning all of the media and setting the agenda constantly. And one little statistic from that graph you showed about the leader's popularity isn't just those who support Jeremy Corbyn. If you look at the percentage that disapprove of him, it's significantly less. So even with all of the smears held against him, people aren't buying it. People are actually still very fond of him because he was one of the few politicians ever, within the lifetime of anyone under the age of 50 who's offered any hope for the future. And that's why his name recognition, even years after he was in the leadership of the Labour Party, and actually even within the Labour Party, he's still the most popular politician in the country. And it shows. I absolutely support this policy, because of all of the things you can criticise Labour for, doing something they said they were going to do, one of the very few things they said they were going to do that they actually did do, seems like an odd place to start with that. And secondly, it annoys the shit out of Julia Hartley-Brewer. And what's better than that?
Nothing. I mean, some commentators, and I assume she's in that, I'm sure she's made this argument before, right, say that young people swing to the left because they're stupid, which isn't a particularly insightful analysis. What's your reasons as to why young people are more left wing? I know, obviously, you said about Jeremy Corbyn is very popular with young people because he actually, let's be honest, British culture and the political system, they hate young people. They're all rigged towards, they all want to buy the votes off older people. Granted, they vote more, so they ignore young people. And of course, young people look to Jeremy Corbyn and think, at least he spoke about us. But what, in your analysis, why is it? And take out Jeremy Corbyn, for example, because this is a trend that happens sort of even across the pond. Why are young people more left wing?
Well, because the political establishment, the regular political parties, as you say, play the electoral mathematics game of older people tend to vote more, so you structure your policy positions toward them, and therefore the younger cohorts, everyone from Gen X downwards, gets left behind and shafted. The boomers, and the home-owning boomers especially, are the only people who have mattered in Western politics for the last 40 years because of Thatcher/Reaganomics, right? So there's that. Also, all of the cool people are progressive. Literally, look, you name any cool artist, any musician, any film star, they're all pretty progressive people. And like, conservatism is just naff as fuck, really, isn't it? It's awful. So young people don't want to go with that. And in terms of them being stupid, it's incredibly ignorant and profoundly patronising to say that they're too stupid, especially when Julie Hartley-Brewer works for Talk TV, an organisation which is viewed entirely by people with fridge temperature IQs. They're the most pathetic people on the planet. If you look at the average political knowledge of the British voter, if you were to do a test, some sort of poll test, in order to meet a certain threshold of knowledge to be able to vote, the vast majority of people over the age of 18 wouldn't be able to pass that. So the idea that the 16 and 17-year-olds are uniquely unqualified for this is ridiculous because, again, like you say, no taxation without representation. If they're paying tax, they should have a right to say where that tax is spent and hold accountable the people who are spending that tax on their behalf. It's as simple as that.
I mean, look, I've met some amazing, intelligent 16, 17-year-olds, even younger, right? And I've also met some fucking dumbass 50-year-olds and 6-year-olds, right? I met some fucking stupid-ass 17, 18-year-olds, and I met some brilliant 30-year-olds. Like, being stupid it's not an age thing, right? I get when they say about maturity and stuff, but here's the thing, right? I think that when you give young people a voice and you give them that sort of power, they are serious about it, And like, if they're worried about 16-year-olds voting silly, all right, they vote for the monster raving loony party. There's not enough numbers for them to get in government. It's not really going to change much.
It's so profoundly jarring to hear people talk about, well, as 16 and 17-year-olds can't act responsibly when we are a nation of people who get absolutely tanked up and coked out of our heads on high streets up and down the country and are sick everywhere and have traffic cones on our heads and get your cuck out for the policeman. It's that. Do you know what I mean? We are a nation of people trying to smash into Greggs during a race riot. We are not a sensible or a responsible nation. We clearly aren't. We've elected people like Liz Truss to be Prime Minister. The idea that any part of our political system actually functions is nonsense. And of course, all of the scare tactics of, oh well, this is going to be the downfall of civilization. No, it's been this way for over a decade in Scotland. One of the few places where any kind of functioning democracy in this country actually exists.
I mean, people said the same thing in the 19th century. Oh, well, anyone who who doesn't have property can vote. No, 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 no. Those who have property, they know what they're doing. They deserve to have the vote. Why should you? It's scaremongering. It's just, and also like, help me deconstruct this. Right? How is expanding the vote right to more people rigging something? Because for me, rigging something is usually trying to disenfranchise people to get the result you want. But when more people vote, how is that rigging? I feel like that's such a desperate argument, and they're clearly losing. They're losing the argument on this.
Oh no, absolutely is. Yeah, rigging, much like many of their buzzwords, basically just means a thing I don't like.
Yeah, like woke.
Yeah, woke or DEI or SJW or any number of these other things they'll come up with. I'm sure there'll be a new one. CRT was a brief favourite.
Which didn't work over. It works in America a bit more. It doesn't work over. No one knows what the fuck that means.
Well, DEI doesn't either. They're going to get rid of DEI jobs. What does that mean? We don't have DEI jobs. That's not a thing here.
No.
It's like saying, well, we're going to get rid of, I don't know, driving on the right-hand side of the road. No, we're not, because that isn't a thing here. Anyway, yeah, basically it's just a thing they don't like, that they find politically disadvantageous, and so naturally they're pushing back on that, and that's fine. But don't do it dishonestly. You're doing this because you know it hurts you electorally. Not massively, because the actual numbers of people who will take this opportunity up will be relatively small, but it doesn't help Nigel Farage, it doesn't help the Conservative Party, and it doesn't help the right-wing media machine. So they're going to go into hyperdrive about how this is terrible for democracy, whilst trying to get all of their friends in the House of Lords, the unelected chamber, to put this piece of legislation down, I'm sure.
Conservatives don't want to expand the vote because young people reject right-wing ideology, right? They don't want that. Labour want to expand the vote because, yes, they think it helps them, right? So you could say both sides are bad in this, but here's the thing. Here's the crucial difference, right? One of them wants less people to vote because they're worried that younger people won't vote for them. The other is saying, let's have more people vote, right? If you expand the vote and you enfranchise more people, right, and that goes in your favor, that's just a good thing. Maybe the right wing should start offering young people stuff instead of saying, oh, we don't want them to vote, it's rigging the system. How about you actually start listening to young people? Because maybe they might vote for you, but I suppose they probably, I mean, they're not going to do that, are they?
No, they're going to rely on boomer votes forever, even as the boomers die off. And of course, this rather puts paid to the idea that, oh, Gen Z have gone so right wing. No, they haven't. There's like two influencers that have skewed the metrics on that. The actual raw vote is consistently far more progressive than elder age group.
I have to admit, I bought into that for a short while. Yeah. I mean, I did look. I mean, polls did show a significant bump for reform with young people, but then you got to break down the numbers, and it was a particular kind of young man, right? But overall,
and of course,
they're still not polling that well with young people. So I got suckered into that. But polls, if you look at polls in terms of the entire generation rather than gender, it's still overwhelmingly left wing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there is a bump for reform, and like you say, the demographics are interesting to look at. But just look at it's got to be measured against the bump in the overall population, where currently they sit at around a third of the vote, and by far leading in every single poll. I haven't seen a poll for months that didn't have reform top of the the number one party. Even if it didn't have them winning an outright majority, it was certainly they were going to be the biggest party. Whereas in the 18 to 24 demographic, or indeed the 16 and 17 demographic, they're second or possibly third in some of the polling. So it's a lie that people are put out there by these random right wing assholes.
I mean, most of the bump has gone to the Greens. That's just categorically true.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any party that's benefiting from the young is the Greens.
Well, because progressive voters are leaving the Labour Party because they don't represent core Labour tenants anymore, in the same way that the Conservative voters collapsed because they don't represent Conservative voters, and so they've gone to the Reform Party. So it's ripe right now for either the Green Party or the Jeremy Corbyn hypothetical People's Party of Judea situation, or whatever, or some sort of pact between the two. to be able to actually become a genuine political force. They're not going to become the government, but they could easily overtake the Conservative Party at the next general election. And that would be a significant step forward for just politics in general.
Support independent media, support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.